I call it chasing rabbits. What have we learned in the last 24 hours? We learned that more Americans were killed by Obama drone strikes than were waterboarded. 4 Americans killed with these drone strikes. And they released the information, and the president gives a speech earlier today. Yes, 5 years later, it's unconstitutional for 5 years ago. I'm going to close Gitmo. Why? Because it's a symbol around the world for an America that flouts the rule of law. Here with us is Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. How are you, sir?
Hey, Sean. Good to be with you.
I call it chasing rabbits because I think the administration would rather the country, the media, you guys in the Senate and the House talk about anything and everything other than the IRS scandal and all the other troubles that they have.
Well, I think he's guaranteed for at least the next 30 days we're going to talk about the IRS abuse of power, because he says he's going to wait 30 days to hear from some commissioner on what they should do. Even though this has been investigated for over a year, you'd think they would have figured out who started this policy of, attacking people because of their political beliefs. One of the things from yesterday with Lerner, taking the IRS agent, taking the Fifth Amendment, you would think she'd immediately be suspended. Even if there's going to be an investigation, she's not cooperating. Why should she be still at work? She shouldn't be allowed in the building or any contact with taxpayer records if she's pleading the Fifth Amendment and she's not going to cooperate.
Yeah, I think that's a good point on your part. What did you think when you heard about the admission of killing 4 Americans, which they hadn't admitted before? And what did you think about his comments about Gitmo, that it is a symbol around the world for an America that flouts the rule of law? I mean, I guess here it is, another apology for America, but...
I think it's always complicated what you do with people captured in war times. It used to be traditionally at the end of the war we sent people back home and they sent prisoners back to us, but this is sort of a different kind of war, and so it's hard to know when the war is over. I do think one thing, and he didn't make this point, but this is my point. I think it would be useful to go ahead and charge the people at Gitmo and run them through the process. If that's a military commission, let's go ahead and do it. I think the one thing that does stir up bad public relations around the world is they haven't been charged or tried. So I think they should be charged and tried. Apparently there is evidence to say that most of the ones, if not all of the ones left, are dangerous, were committing and actively conspiring or fighting against the United States. So let's go ahead and produce that evidence in military commissions and try them. But I think holding them indefinitely without a charge or trial is a mistake.
But don't you believe, as I do, that they should be charged as enemy combatants? A military tribunal is far more appropriate than giving them constitutional rights like an American citizen would have?
For foreign fighters captured overseas, yes. I think a military commission or a tribunal is adequate, and I think we can't expect the same jurisprudence that an American citizen would get. However, where I part ways with some is that if you're an American citizen accused of a crime in America, you do get full due process.
What do you make of the scandal involving the IRS from this perspective? They've known about this all. I mean, the IRS concluded their investigation in May of 2012.
Yeah, that's the whole point, is why do they need another 30 days? They've had the investigation. Certainly they should know, was there a written policy targeting Tea Party groups? Was this word of mouth? Was this 1 or 2 agents? Who directed this? I see reports saying 500 different organizations were targeted. The other thing is there have been allegations now that people believe they were audited because of their political beliefs and because of what they were saying. So that, if that hasn't been investigated, that will need to be investigated. The other thing is I don't think the president can gain back the credibility to lead the country unless he really cleans this up, unless heads really roll and he gets to the bottom of it and doesn't appear to shuffle this under the carpet. If he just pushes this aside and doesn't treat it, he's lost so much credibility, it's going to be difficult for him to govern during a second term.
Do you support a special prosecutor?
Well, some have said that. I think that is something that should probably happen. But I think also the House of Representatives should continue what they're doing. I think they're asking good questions. I think there's a real question whether or not you can come and give a statement and still plead the Fifth Amendment. There are a lot of lawyers over there looking into that. And I think she was supposed to be brought back today.
Well, I think it's going to be about 11 days until she's brought back. Yeah. Look, I think it's important that we just get to the bottom line and we get to the truth. I've tried to look. I look to people like you my buddy Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, Marco Rubio, and I kind of see you four guys as the leading conservatives in the Senate. And what? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say
you're all wacko birds, by the way, every one of you.
It's an exclusive club, but the four of us have actually been on the floor this week, and what we've been fighting for is to not let them attach the debt ceiling to the budget, to not have any backroom deal where the debt ceiling becomes part of this, four people in a closed room where they get to raise the debt ceiling. And I think if you ask the American public, should we have some budgetary reform, should we have a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution in exchange for raising the debt ceiling, I think you'd find overwhelming support for forcing these people to do what's right in exchange for raising the debt ceiling. So we're going to win that fight. We're holding fast. Some in our party are giving us a hard time. Many on the other side are. But the American people want us to do something so we do not continue to spend money we don't have.
Yeah. Well, the reason I say this is because I've interviewed all of you on the issue of this immigration reform, this Gang of Eight. We had Senator Rubio on earlier this week, and he acknowledges, I asked him specifically about your trust and verify provision that you want in the bill before you would consider voting for it. But it's now going to proceed in the Senate. And I'll tell you, I've tried to keep an open mind. And I listen to Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz doesn't want a path to citizenship, especially for people that did not respect our laws and our sovereignty. So everyone's got their own ideas, and I've been watching them piece it together, and I think that Marco Rubio's been very sincere. I think, though, I'm coming to the conclusion for myself that we're better off just doing this piecemeal instead of comprehensively, and that is that we just secure the border first, and perhaps they'll do it more expeditiously if that is what they should do, and then deal with it in parts, because I don't trust the government, Senator, to get this done, and I know that's part of your trust and verify provision, that you got to secure the border, and we've got to verify that it's secure. But I don't know if it reminds me of, like, we're going to get tax increases and spending cuts later. You always get the tax increases. You never get the spending cuts. We're going to get people legalized, but we're never going to get the border secure.
We've been burned so many times that we distrust government to actually do what they say. So the only way I can vote for it, and I do think we should have immigration reform, but the only way I can vote for it is if I do truly believe there's border security. Right now, they delegate that to the administration, to the president, and they say, do it. If you don't do it, we'll make you write a report. If your report's not any good, we'll make you have a commission, which will write a plan to write a report. What we do with Trust But Verify is we say Congress gets to vote every year on whether the border is secure, and we tell them you have to build a certain amount of miles of fence. We don't say you have to have a plan to build a fence. We just tell them to build a fence. We don't tell them you have to have a plan to have exit and entry. We just tell them this is what you do it. And then each year we vote on whether it's done. But whether we do it piecemeal or all together, I'm actually more in favor of the piecemeal approach. I'm just sort of stuck here in the Senate where the Democrats control it and they're bringing it all together. But I'd be, if I were in the House, right there with them saying let's pass the stuff we can agree on and let's try to make things better. I'm not sure what will happen between the House and the Senate. I do know that if my vote counts over here, if they want me to vote for immigration reform, I'm willing to do it if they will come to me and say, what will it take to make sure that you believe the border will be secure? And I have those amendments. I also want the Treasury to be secure. I don't want us to give welfare to people who are going to be here on work visas. And as far as pathway to citizenship, I don't want a new pathway to citizenship. I would let you, if you're working on a work visa, get in the same line as somebody who's currently in Mexico City. Not a new line, not a faster line, not at the front of the line, at the back of the line, the same as anybody else who wants to immigrate to this country. But I'd let you stand in both lines. If you want to work and be on a work visa, I'd let you also get in a line to come into the country.
It's pretty complicated, and it gets pretty complicated, and I really have been trying to just listen to everybody, and we don't know what the final thing. One thing that Senator Rubio said is he agrees with you, that the border security aspect of the bill is not strong enough.
Yeah, and that's where I think that really there's a contingent that if they would withhold vote on the final passage, could make this bill stronger. So I'm talking to several Republicans saying, if we get 6, 8, 10 of us who say we might vote for it if the bill's better, maybe they will come and talk to us at some point and say, yes, we do need your votes, and we're willing to talk to you. But in the Judiciary Committee, it seemed like they fought off most amendments, and a lot of the amendments were good amendments. I don't think any of the amendments I saw were on there to try to stop the bill. They were to make the bill better, but they were all defeated, other than a couple of good ones by Senator Hatch.
I was really proud of you the other day as you guys brought the CEO of Apple before one of your committees. I don't remember which one, and you were there, and I guess people were playing for the cameras, and Carl Levin and others were out there playing for the cameras, attacking Apple. Apple that paid, $6 billion in taxes, and the fact that they have $102.3 billion offshore because they're a multinational company, and our tax laws are so punitive that they'd have to give 35% of it back to our government if they brought the money back in the U.S., and they say that they're flouting tax laws and they're not paying their fair share. And I'm thinking nobody's accusing them of doing anything illegal, are they? Isn't this the same laws that they created?
Yeah, not at all. In fact, they're being accused of minimizing their tax burden. So I looked at one of the professors and I said, look, do you take deductions on your return? He said, yes. I said, do you try to minimize or maximize your tax burden? He says, minimize. And I said, are you a good or a bad person for doing so? And he says, I'm not a bad person for doing so. Then why are we vilifying Apple company or a corporation for doing exactly what every citizen, every politician, every person in America does, try to minimize legally your tax burden? And I further said, instead of dragging them in here and insulting them, they should have put a giant mirror in their place so they could see where the problem was. It's Congress's bizarre tax code.
Yeah, I mean, that was the funny part about it. I mean, I'm sitting there thinking everybody does the same thing. And you're right. We all try and minimize our tax burden. Ole, you want to know the truth? I don't take every deduction I should, because you know why? I've always known that I've got a target on my back, and I figure there's nothing that liberals would like more than me in handcuffs, perp walked, and on the cover of a newspaper because, quote, Hannity didn't pay his fair share. So I tell my guy, just forget, the underwear deductions like Joe Biden and Bill Clinton.
But the bigger thing and the bigger policy problem here is that money goes where it's welcome. Our corporate income tax is 35%. Canada's is 15%. Which country is going to attract more corporations? Europe is much lower than ours. We have to lower our corporate tax. The other thing is when companies like Apple earn money overseas, they will bring it home, but they're not going to pay 35% on top of 25% that they pay in Europe. So what I've suggested is let them bring it at 5%. It's called repatriation at 5%. I'd create a special fund. Part of it would go to pay off the debt, and part of it would go into infrastructure. We could build probably 15 to 20 major bridge projects a year if we would do this. There's bipartisan support for it, but the reason they don't do it is they say, oh, it's the sweetener for overall tax reform, which I don't know if we'll ever get.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever get it either, but I thought it was just ironic. I know people that are so sick and tired of the burdensome taxes in this country that they're looking to leave the U.S. Did you know that?
Well, I mean, people are going from state to state. You have many people located in Florida, Tennessee, Texas, these states that have no income tax.
I want to move to Florida or Texas. I mean, literally, I pay in New York over 60 cents of every dollar that I make goes to some tax.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
State, local, federal tax.
Yep. Well, why don't y'all move the media headquarters to Kentucky or Tennessee?
Well,
maybe New York can just come south.
Listen, or Florida. No offense, but the weather's better. I love Kentucky, but I mean the weather's better in Florida, and I like being near the water. I mean that's a fair deal, right? I'm an honorary Texan. Did you know that Rick Perry made me an honorary Texan?
I did
with
not know that.
A proclamation.
Now I am really impressed. But I actually grew up there, so I'm probably a little more of an original Texan, I think, than you are.
All right, I got a question. Now, you're speaking in Iowa, you just spoke there, New Hampshire, South Carolina, so you're announcing today that you're running for president in 2016.
There must be just some kind of coincidence. I keep looking up at my schedule.
Stop it. So you're considering a run.
I am considering it, but the first thing that I'm thinking about is how we grow the Republican Party bigger. I think we need to attract young people. President Obama got 70% of young people. I think we need to attract African Americans. He got 95% of African Americans. We got to attract Hispanics. He got nearly 70 or 75% of Hispanic. So we do have to do all of this. And I think there is room for some of the things that I've been talking about. I'm going to be out in California next week. I'll be speaking to some of the high-tech companies near San Francisco, and then I'll be down at the Reagan Library, and I'll be talking about how the Republicans can win in California again.
Well, if you can pull that one off, God bless you. Look, I'll say this at the beginning of this process, and we're way early here. I think you'll be a formidable candidate, and I think you're going to bring a lot of support in. If I had to guess, you, Cruz, Rubio, between the three of you, I mean, we got three rock stars running. That'd be awesome for the conservative movement.
It'd be better if we were all three behind one candidate, though.
Well, if you all work it out amongst yourselves, I'll support.
All right, we'll try. You help us.
I could support either one of you, to be honest.
All right.
All right, 800-941-SEAN is on number. The most connected man in D.C., Jamie Dupree, is going to try and sort through all this mess next.